Well, hi, welcome along everyone. How you doing? Today what I would like to do is I want to review the ASW-28. This is a glider that you can get from Hobbyking. It's this one here. It is actually made by Lanyu, so Hobbyking must be selling on behalf of Lanyu. Okay, so overall, this is a huge glider. Okay, it's 2.5 meters across. I have to leave it like this because it's too big to fit in the car. But the wings are absolutely ginormous here. You probably can't even see it in the frame. But each of the wings are, well, I don't know what it adds up to, over a meter each. So this is a very big model. I suggest that if this is your first, well, that you don't buy it as your first glider. It is a very big glider. It is actually so big it's very difficult to do moves with it, like barrel rolls. Loops are fine. It's not very maneuverable, but it does fly beautifully. It's very elegant in the air, and it looks like a real plane. So if you want a real scale plane, this is a good model to get. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to look at some of the pros and cons of it, and first I'm going to go through the building of it when it arrives in the box. So, most of these models are not difficult to build. This one wasn't difficult. There are a few little bugs that I wasn't quite happy with. The first thing is that the engine didn't actually work. The bearing in it had come loose, so I had to actually take apart the engine and kind of just ram the bearing back in there with a pair of pliers. That may or may not hold, so I may have to fix that again. So that was a bit disappointing. The other thing is that the little tiplets on the ends of the wings, let me just show you what I mean, if I can find them. Yeah, the tiplets, I'll just show you what I mean. I got two left hand tiplets, you see that, rather than a left and a right. So they obviously mispackaged it, and I let them know about that, but they don't have spare parts for this, so they can't send me a replacement. They just gave me some store credit. So I'd suggest if you're not a very experienced flyer and you think you might crash it, it's probably not a good idea to get it at all because it's very hard to replace the parts. And I couldn't get those wingtips replaced, so I'm just going to fly it without the wingtips, just like this. And that'll probably suit me fine because it is easier to transport without that sort of vulnerable thing sticking up there on the side. So when I was putting it together, you can see you've got the flaps and your ailerons. I actually found it incredibly difficult to screw on the little horns there. The reason is because you have to get your screwdriver in on an angle like this, and I just couldn't get it. So I've actually super glued those on. So if I need to change those later on, well, I won't be able to change those later on. So someone else might have a better technique than me, but I just couldn't quite get that to work. But in the end, I have got it sorted out, and they are very good. They're very good, powerful servos. They work really well, and it gives you plenty of authority over the wing when it's flying. Right, so the next thing is when you're making this, I suggest that what you do is you turn the engine braking on. So engine braking is when the engine positively stops the propeller from spinning. If you don't have that on, the propeller will keep spinning basically the whole time that it's in the air, even if you don't have the power on. And basically what that means is that it essentially acts as an air brake, and it will stop this from gliding, and it will only fly with the engine on and basically on full, which really ruins it as a glider. So I strongly suggest that you turn the engine braking on. Okay, so I've got another video actually, you can go and have a look at that and I demonstrate how to do it. But make sure you do that because it really doesn't fly well without that. Okay, it goes slow all the time, it doesn't glide properly. In reality, the full-scale version of this glider has a glide slope of 45:1, which means for every foot that it drops, it should go 45 forward. Okay, that's incredible. I have given this a fly already, and it's probably It's probably similar to that. It's probably at least 30 to 1 when it's going along. So it does glide beautifully. If yours isn't gliding, there might be a problem with it, like the engine braking. The other thing I found, it was constantly wanting to dip, and having a wee look at it, I decided that it was quite nose heavy, and that was even if I had shifted the battery back. So what I've done, I've put 2 ounces of lead weight on the tail there. I'm yet to test try this, but I suggest that you have a few of these lying around just in case you need to balance it. I found mine was nose heavy, so I've tried to balance that with a little weight on the tail. So I'll see how that goes. In the last part of this video, you'll be able to see the test flight with that on, so that'll be interesting. The other thing is, it's so big you can't transport it as a complete model. Well, I can't. It's very, very wide. Maybe if you had a van or something. So I've left it like this, and I put the wings in each time. What I suggest you do is what I've done here, which is I've taken a bit of string and I've just tied a knot on the aileron and the flap leads, just sticking out the edge there. And what that means is when I get to the field ready to fly, those haven't slipped back inside the plane, which is actually a real pain to try and get them out. You have to kind of dangle them in there and get a bit of tweezers in. But you can see it's actually quite a little hole that they go in there. It probably wouldn't hurt to make that hole bigger with a knife or something. I have lost them in there a couple of times. It's pretty annoying. So what you would do is you just slot the wing in. This is just a steel tube, keeps the wings on straight, slides in. And you have a little fixture. I'll show you that now. It's in my box here. You have one of these wee fellows, and so you screw down here and here, and that's what actually holds the wing in. What I suggest you do is you put that in last. In the manual, it says to put that in first and slide your wing on, but it really doesn't work if you do it like that. So I'll just show you just quickly here. So you take the wing and you would slot it on like this, if I can get it to go in, like that. You'd connect up those 2 leads there, and you push that all the way in. Okay, do that with both sides, hold it upside down like that, and then put your piece of wood in. Okay, so that goes all the way through, and you screw it down. If you do it properly, it actually only takes about 2 minutes to put it together on the field. It took me about 20 minutes last time because I lost these cords inside. It was very difficult to get them out. So I do suggest putting a bit of string there. It really does help. The other thing is the battery. This is the recommended battery for this plane. It's a 3-cell 1500 milliamp hour. It's all you need. It will get it going fairly well. It goes fairly steeply. But you're not going to be doing any tricks with it. It's not. I wouldn't say that gave you a lot of power. It's also the plane, the flying weight of the plane is probably about 1 kilo. So you could probably put several of these in there if you wanted to have a longer flight time. I'm guessing by the way, you could probably almost have 3 or 4 of these in there if you would link them up. So if you got maybe a 5,000 one of these, it would probably be okay. I also would like to try it on a 4-cell. It's running off a 3-cell. It's not bad, but I've had a glider in the past, and when you go from a 3 to a 4-cell, you get that extra bit of power, and it is a lot more fun. So I'm not sure, because I haven't got a 4-cell to experiment on, but I would suggest that you could go a lot bigger than what they recommend in terms of weight and milliamp, and you could probably go more cells. Maybe a 4-cell should be alright. But do that at your own risk. I'm a bit worried it would rip the propeller off the front, because the propeller's sort of crimped on. It doesn't screw on. It's got a crimp, and you kind of wind it and it squishes down. And given that you can't buy replacement parts, if I do lose that propeller, well, I'm not sure what would happen then. But that's all that I wanted to say just for the review. Overall, it wasn't too bad. I put it together. It's very cool looking. One thing that I did do that I would add is I've got all of these control surfaces on the highest throw. You see there on the back. I thought it was quite small. This was only moving a tiny bit and I didn't think it would really get it going. So I've got that on the highest setting there, and the same with the wings. And I have given it a fly, and it wasn't oversensitive at all. In fact, if anything, it's probably still not sensitive enough. So make sure you have those on their highest setting. But that's all that I wanted to say for this part. The next part we're going to cut now to the next time I take this out flying, and you can see what it's like in the air, and I'll make a few comments about that then. So stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome along. This is part 2 of my review of the ASW-28. We're here today at the beautiful Warrington Beach. On a Saturday in New Zealand, all the parks are full because people are playing sports, so we're relegated to the beach. So I'm going to be making a few comments as I fly it, but I hope you enjoy watching this, and we'll see how it goes. Okay. So here we are just taking off, and my first impressions of flying the ASW-28 is that it's a huge plane. It's very docile and sort of slow in terms of its manoeuvrability. This does make it very difficult to do things like rolls or flying it upside down, but it does fly like a real scale airplane. The other thing is that because of its size, it's actually very fast and it covers a lot of ground very quickly. So you need a very large open area to fly this plane, and as you can see, I'm up against the sea there, so I've got almost an infinite amount of airspace. The power of the engine is adequate. It's enough to get it up to height and to get it moving, but it could do with an extra cell in the battery, and I'm yet to experiment on that. So I'd recommend maybe trying out a 4-cell, because the standard battery is a 3-cell. So I'll make some comments about what was good and what was bad about the way the plane flies, and this is in addition to the build video that I've just finished. So the first thing is I still couldn't get the weight right of the plane. I originally had a weight on the back and I took that off, and what I did is I just adjusted the trim so it's got a bit of up elevator, and later on I hardwired a little bit of up elevator into the elevator, so I don't need to use the trim. But I'm still working on getting the balance right, so that was quite difficult. The other thing is there's a bit of adverse yaw when you bank it up. So what that means is if I bank it to the left, I expect it to turn slightly to the left, but what it seems to do is it turns a little bit to the right and then eventually comes around to the left. That's called adverse yaw. So generally what you have to do to overcome that is initiate the turn with a bit of rudder, and then keep a bit of rudder on and use the ailerons as well. So generally on the turns I'm using all 3 channels of the elevator, the rudder and the aileron. So it's a little bit more difficult to fly. I'd say it probably needs more power if you want to be able to do more with it. So I'd say the 3-cell battery is probably underpowered. I'd go for a 4-cell if you're buying this for the first time. Also, because of its size, it is a bit difficult to transport, and it does take a few minutes to set up just because of its size, but that would be true of any large glider. So the highlights, it's a very big plane, it looks really good, it flies really elegantly in the air, it's a very scale plane, it looks like a real one, just a little bit closer up, and it does turn a lot of heads when you're out flying. A lot of people are quite interested in it and want to talk to you about it. It's fast in the dives. When you go up to height and you turn that propeller off, it comes by really quick and it makes a really good sound when it flies past. It also maintains its momentum. When you do a dive, you can actually pull out of that dive and gain a bit of height at the end, just because it's weight. So my other foam glider can't do that, so that's one advantage of getting a bigger, sort of heavier glider. I haven't taken it slope soaring yet, but I'm thinking it would be very good for that. And you'd have a lot of control over it, and you'd be able to position it just where you wanted to in the wind. So I'm looking forward to trying that. I think it'd be a great glider for that. Also, the flaps work very well. It slows the plane down quite a lot, and it does make it very easy for landing. So as opposed to air brakes, the flaps also generate quite a lot of lift. And I even use them on takeoff if I'm not sure that I'm going to get enough speed. I put the flaps down, and that gives me a lot more lift on takeoff. In fact, if you're coming into a headwind with the flaps down, the plane almost stops dead in the air and you can land it almost vertically. Being a very large glider, you can glide it quite a long way away and you can still see exactly what's going on. A couple of times I took it right out over the sea, and I had complete control over it and I could see it even a couple of 100 meters away. And lastly, it does fly very stable and very flat. Very easy to control in that respect. You can keep it flat quite up in the air when you can't even really see the angle properly. And it doesn't seem to stall either. I haven't actually really stalled it yet. It does sort of drop a bit when it gets slow, but it doesn't have any sort of adverse or nasty stall characteristics, so that's a plus. So overall, I think it's a very good plane. I wouldn't get it as your first plane because it's quite sort of complex to fly, and if you crash it, it would probably destroy itself because it's so big. It'd be very difficult to repair. But I'm looking forward to having many more flights and seeing what I can do, and maybe taking it slope slowing and put a bigger battery in. So I do recommend it. So overall, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and I'll do some more reviews in the future. So I'll talk to you again then. Bye!